All right. It looks like it's 9 somewhere. I know that we'll likely have some people joining here shortly, but we'll go ahead and get started, being respectful of everyone's time. Thank you for joining us for this public safety focused aviation workshop. This will be a two-part workshop with the first portion covering showcasing drone utility for public safety applications. We'll have a brief break, and then the second subject will come back after at noon rather, and cover the unique hazards associated with responding to an aircraft accident or incident. And it's intended for first responders that don't receive aviation specific training. I'd like to take a minute to thank all the volunteers that helped make this meeting possible. You will hear several presentations today. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put your questions in the chat. And after each presentation, you'll have an opportunity to unmute and ask your questions. With that, my name is Ray Seif. I'm Director of Aviation for the Kansas Department of Transportation. I'd like to take a minute and recognize our next presenter, KHP Trooper Clayton Tarpley. Trooper Tarpley, please jump in, brief intro, and then feel free to jump into your presentation, sir.
Okay, good morning. First off, Ray, thanks for the invite. We at KHP, especially in our crash reconstruction team, which I'm a part of, we've gotten pretty hot and heavy into the drone world here over the last several years. And if any of the attendees were present in Manhattan at the Transportation Safety Conference, I presented with Brian, and it was a great opportunity to talk about the drone world that I operate in all the time. If you were present in Manhattan, I do have to kind of apologize. A lot of the presentation that I'm going to give today is a repeat of what I did in Manhattan, but the underlying parts and pieces of why KHP uses drones in the crash world, it all falls in there in this presentation as well. It's all the same. So as Ray said, my name's Clayton Tarpley. I'm a technical trooper with the Kansas Highway Patrol. I've been a trooper for about 25 years. Almost 18 of those years have served on the agency's Critical Highway Accident Response Team, or the CHART team is what we're known as. We respond predominantly to commercial vehicle, multi-vehicle, multi-fatality type collisions. Over my career, I've investigated and reconstructed hundreds of collisions. And given the time that I've spent doing crash work with the agency, I've seen a huge transition in the technological advances that have taken place over the years. When I started working with the crash recon team, it was about 2006. I joined on as a mapper, and I would help the actual CHART team members go out and diagram crash scenes utilizing two-man total station systems. And one of the biggest drawbacks that we had to that was dealing with line of sight issues. If I couldn't see the prism on the far end of the crash scene, then I couldn't take a measurement to the prism in order to locate a point. As technology advanced, we transitioned over into using GPS type mapping systems where the line of sight kind of went away, but we still have some restrictions based off of being able to communicate with satellites. So if you can envision that when we're mapping around a commercial vehicle crash and we're up close to like a semi-trailer, we do run into some obstructed communication with the satellites, and so we run into some issues with that. When the GPS is now combined with the drone technology, we've really upped our game to some degree, because now we can utilize imagery from the drones in conjunction with those GPS coordinates that we're actually plotting on the ground. And we create an orthomosaic image, which is basically a scale picture of what our overall crash scene looks like. So the drone world has really upped our game, if you will, when it comes to our abilities to document some of these complex scenes. Um, with respect to complex scenes, the Sherman County multi-vehicle pileup that happened in March of 25, that's by far and away kind of our, I guess, if you will, that's our pride and joy to talk about when we discuss the complex scenes. And as I'll show here in a little bit, without the drone technology, we would have tremendous difficulties in trying to accurately document and diagram that kind of an event, simply because of issues like line of sight. If we were to try to use our traditional two-man total station, or connectivity with satellites up above. If you can envision semis piled up on top of semis, and trying to get down into the middle of that mess to be able to accurately locate axle positions and those kind of things, so that we can accurately locate those vehicles on the roadway. Um, Connectivity is a real problem when you're down in the middle of that mess. So the drone technology gives us the ability to look from above and identify where these vehicles are located. And then we utilize that GPS mapping to locate some control points out there away from all of the vehicles that create line of sight or connectivity issues, and everything meshes together really well. So let me see if I can get this PowerPoint pulled up here, and I'll see if I can show you a little about what I'm talking about here. So okay. Um, so basically, what I'm going to talk to you about is how do we utilize our drones in the commercial vehicle investigation and crash scene world. So for our overall, drones give us that ability to do some specific things. But what is it that we're talking about when we're talking about drones? Well, there's some specific definitions. The small unmanned aircraft systems, as referred to by the FAA. We're talking about things weighing less than 55 pounds. Used for aerial photography, inspection, search and rescue, those kind of things. Law enforcement first responder drones typically are going to be smaller drones in that 2 to 10 pound range. And the drones that we've typically used over the years, some of them have been small enough that you can launch them straight out of the palm of your hand. And then the one that we're running right now is a little bit bigger than that. It's about the size of a large pizza box, give or take, when it's all deployed. Drones will generally be equipped with thermal and color cameras that give the ability to look into the darkness, when we're doing searches and manhunts and those kind of things. Some of the drones will come equipped with speakers so that you can give instructions to people on the ground, that sort of thing. Ours, we do not have a speaker on ours, but we do have lights to illuminate, those kind of different attachments that will come on. We're going to typically fly below that 400-foot elevation mark with most everything that we're doing. A lot of times our missions don't even exceed 150 feet off the ground. Um, we are all Part 107 certified remote pilots for the KHP. In lieu of having that, we do have some folks that periodically assist us, and they do not have their 107. But as long as we're standing right next to them, able to take control of that drone in the immediate position if something goes wrong, we allow them to, kind of fly around as well. Our current crash response team employs Skydio X10 drones with color and thermal cameras, RTK modules, and the NightSense lighting attachments. The RTK modules, those are correction services that provide us to get centimeter accurate measurements when we're looking at how we're going to tie all of the aerial imagery down and correspond that with GPS positions on the ground. We use these not only for crash purposes, but we also use them for manhunt, search and rescue functions, surveillance, other law enforcement purposes. Just this past weekend, over in Hodgman County, they had a drowning where a gentleman was, playing football out in the swim area, and he went underwater and never came back. And they contacted me to drive over and fly my drone just for search and rescue purposes. Unfortunately, they located his body prior to me getting there, so I did not actually have to deploy the drone. But that's just an example of some of the call outs that we get with the drone usage. We also do overwatch missions for large events. Just recently in Wichita, multiple chart team members were tasked with providing overwatch at some of the high school graduation functions down in Wichita. Just providing Wichita PD and local law enforcement with an eye in the sky, if you will, to look for problem areas for fights or any kind of other mischievous events that are taking place at any of those kind of things. We also fly at the state fair. So there's multiple uses for those drones. Currently, this is a pretty good representation of the drone that we're flying. If you notice the speaker that's off the side of that X10, we don't have that speaker, but the little tower sticking up in the back end, that's an RTK module, and we do have those. Like I said, that just allows for a correction service to communicate with the drone while it's taking aerial imagery and be able to provide us with some real centimeter accurate measurements when we're flying these things. So the biggest reason that we're utilizing the drones in our world is, speed, safety, accuracy, and data collection. All of that is combined and put together for a courtroom presentation if it's applicable. We go to a tremendous number of crashes every year, and pretty much every crash that occurs out there on the roadway begins with some sort of violation of a state statute or a state law. If we think about the most common types of crashes that we deal with, left of center crashes, fail to maintain single lane crashes, following too close crashes. Those are all violations of state law. And so every crash that we go to begins with a violation of a law, so therefore we potentially lead into a criminal case at some point in time. Not every crash goes to a criminal prosecution case, but some of them do. So we are always thinking, how are we going to present this to a judge or a jury at the back end if needed? The drones provide us with the ability to give some really good visual representations within the courtroom, not to mention the photography and the video that we get from the drones is fantastic. When you can fly 50 feet above a crash scene and you can look at the tire marks and all of the different dynamics of the crash that you can see from roadway evidence, the perspective that you get from a drone is just incredible compared to standing on the ground taking photographs. With the speed, we are typically able to fly these large crash scenes within about 35 to 45 minutes, depending on what level of documentation that we need to obtain. And when you look at it from the standpoint of clearing the highway and getting traffic flowing again, that is a huge game changer for us. I used to jokingly tell people that, I was the guy who showed up at the crash and I would shut the highway down for 6 or 7 hours while we were mapping and diagramming these complex scenes. And I always had one of my partners from KDOT standing over my shoulder saying, how much longer? And, traditionally it was give me a couple more hours. Well, now I'm able to tell those folks, let me get a grasp on exactly what it is that we're dealing with. Let me take a look at everything. As soon as I can get my drone in the air, I can probably have everything flown within an hour, and I can get everything marked on the roadway that I need to mark within, another hour. So, 6 hours has been reduced down to probably closer to 2 hours. Sometimes we have to take an extended amount of time in order to get what we need. But we've gotten to the point where on a lot of our crashes, the response time for me to get from where I'm at to where I need to go, sometimes that is one of the longer parts of why the highway may be closed down, is waiting for one of my team members or myself to get there. So the drone technology combined with our GPS mapping technology has just dramatically changed the game for us when it comes to diagramming and documenting these scenes. Our RTK positioning, again, that's an acronym for real-time kinematic. We're basically talking to the satellites, and we're using a corrective service that provides us with centimeter accuracy GPS measurements. It's fantastic, and when everything is clicking and working the way it's supposed to be working, it's almost as fast as you can walk down the roadway. So documenting tire marks and gouge marks and vehicles at final rest and all of the evidentiary items, the RTK mapping has really stepped that up tremendously, compared to the standard two-man total station that we used to be running. When we talk about, what are we capturing with these drones? Well, we're taking high resolution images, and these images are then going to be overlapped, or for lack of a better term, they're going to be stitched together, with typically a 70 to 80% overlap. And it essentially creates a Google Map image, is what it looks like, of what a crash scene is. The biggest difference is we can go into that image and we can take very detailed, specific measurements. So when we can create all of these orthomosaics and take all the imagery and show all of the pictures from up above, along with video fly-throughs and those kind of things, the drone world just really gives us a whole new aspect to what we can present in a courtroom. When we look at how this works in the real world, essentially, if anybody out there is a photographer, has ever heard of the term of photogrammetry, that's what we're doing. Is we are obtaining accurate measurements from photographs, and those images, as we fly over a scene, on the roadway, we will paint some control points, so that way we have some visual markers from the sky, within those images, and it gives us the ability to stitch these images together and create these really great looking, overall views and photos of the crash. Um, our ground control points, like I said, those are going to be tie points or known reference points that are precisely measured on the ground. And we utilize our GPS mapping system to accurately measure where those locations are at. Within the images that the drone takes, those tie points can be seen in the images. And so we take all of those images, we throw all of those into a CAD processing software. What we are utilizing is called Pix 4D, and the CAD software is able to recognize and identify those tie points and those ground control points, and it stitches all of these images together, and it produces these real pretty overall views of our crash scene. So in this image here, if you look down on the back end of that truck, you'll see an X2 and an X3, that are painted there on the back end. Those would be typical of how our ground control points are going to look. We will physically mark the center of that X on the ground utilizing GPS mapping. And then as the drone is flying our crash scene, obviously it is capturing those ground control points. So if you think, from the standpoint that we have GPS position of each one of those control points on the ground through our mapping, then when the drone is taking images, it's also GPS locating each one of those images. And so GPS coordinates from the sky, GPS coordinates from the ground, they tie together. And that's how we put all this into a real nice, pretty picture. So our Sherman County event, if you're not familiar with this, was Friday, March 14th at about 3:20. Super heavy winds started blowing in across Sherman County, and it resulted in a lot of blowing dust. We had multiple areas across northwest Kansas that visibility went to zero, and unfortunately, one of those areas just happened to be right adjacent to I-70. What we ended up with was, uh, about 9 miles east of Goodland. We started getting phone calls of multi-vehicle mass casualty type events and collisions occurring. And before they could get everything shut down to stop the pileup from occurring, what we were left with was roughly 72 vehicles between the eastbound and the westbound side of I-70 that were all piled in there together. This massive incident resulted in 8 fatalities in 7 different vehicles. Um, we had one driver of a tractor trailer combination, and about 100 total people that were involved. We're not 100% positive. I get asked every time I talk about this, do we know what started it? Honestly, we do not know exactly what started the pile up. We don't know what our initiating vehicles were, but we do believe that it was likely something that started on the westbound side. Within this image, if you look to the left side of the screen, the field that looks like freshly plowed dirt, that would be the field that was blowing. And thankfully, we did have a farmer, a neighboring farmer, who started working that field, turning that soil over. And as he turned it over, it reduced the amount of dust that was blowing off of it. So that was kind of how we got the dust storm brought to a halt, was through the farmer helping us out. Not to mention it started to rain a little bit, so it helped subside a lot of that blowing dust and dirt. But this image right here is one of the very first images that I took when I arrived at the scene. And our drones, we have the capability to live stream, and so folks in Wichita, Topeka, within the agency, as I was putting this drone in the sky, they were getting a real-time updated view of what we were dealing with out there. And that by itself is a real advancement in our technological capabilities, because of the simple fact that I was on my phone on with the lieutenant of our chart team, David Moncton, in Wichita, and I was saying, this is bad. This is probably the biggest thing I've ever been to. And he's like, tell me what you got. And I just simply started counting semi truck and trailer combinations that I could see. And when I got to about 23, he said, no problem. I'm going to pack a bag and I'll be en route. So he drove from Wichita up. Myself, I live just west of Garden City in Lakin. I drove up there. Our chart team member in Hayes drove over, and then our chart team member in Salina drove over. So we had 4 chart team members there. We worked throughout the night to get all of this documented and diagrammed, photographed, all of the vehicles documented, that sort of thing. And it was a process, to say the least, and it was a process that none of us really had any experience with. We had some KHP personnel who had been to some pileups before, but nobody had been to something like this. So it was a divide and conquer type of a thing. Ultimately, we ended up with 72 total vehicles, 30 commercial motor vehicles, and 42 non-commercial motor vehicles. 23 on the eastbound side were tractor trailer combinations, 4 on the westbound side, a couple of straight truck, box truck type of vehicles, and then one pickup that is considered a commercial motor vehicle as well. This video here, if you were in Manhattan at the conference, this video gives you a little bit of an overall of what the crash scene looked like. And this was flown at about 3:50 in the morning, utilizing our Skydio X10 with the Night Sense module attached to it. And I just can't say it enough. Had we not had this drone technology and capability, we might still be out there trying to figure out a way to document that crash scene. It was not going to be user friendly for our old way of doing business. So this is one of the first big events that took place for us to utilize the drones. And it was a saving grace, to say the least. We obviously learned some things, and we figured out some things that if we were to have another one of these events take place, which, knock on wood, I hope we never do, but I also am a realistic person, and I know that eventually it will happen. Um, Given the fact that we ran through this one, and we figured out things that worked and things that didn't work, or things that they worked, but we can do them better. We now have a little bit better grasp and understanding of how we can tackle one of these kind of monsters. And so I anticipate that in the event of another one of these incidents occurring, we'll do things a little bit better. And I do have to say that we worked throughout the night, and we were able to get the vehicles and the roadway cleanup started by about 9 o'clock the following morning. And from my perspective as a crash recon guy who has worked hundreds of crashes, the idea that we dealt with east and westbound I-70 and 72 vehicles, and we were able to get all of this documentation done within a period of about 15 to 16 hours. That's incredible from my perspective. I've worked on cases over the years with 3 or 4 vehicles where it took us 7, 8, 10 hours to get those documented, due to the complex nature of what they were, and due to the technology we were utilizing at the time. And when I think about doing 72 vehicles and documenting east and westbound I-70, it's incredible to think that we were able to get all of this done within the time frame that we had. Um, like I said, I do believe that if we were to have another one of these events occur, we would probably be able to minimize that time a little bit more, even, and potentially get things done even a little bit faster. Within that video, if you see the X's painted down there on the ground, those are our control points. And if you notice where those are located, they're out away from any of the vehicles. They're in locations where we don't have to worry about line of sight with satellites to get our GPS corrections and locations pinpointed down. And we're just, we let the imagery from the drone provide us with what we were looking for to document the positioning of each of the vehicles. And we tied all of that imagery together with those control points on the ground, and everything came together really well. One of the biggest hurdles we had to overcome with this big event was trying to decide and figure out, based off of evidence, how do we know what vehicle collided with what vehicle? Some of them are pretty clear, but some of them, we have a car or two that skipped off of one vehicle and then collided into another vehicle. And when you're trying to put all of these things back as accurately as you can, for our crash reporting purposes, we can't just lump all of this into one event. It's got to be broken out into separate cases, into separate reports. And that was a real challenge, to say the least. We uh, we currently have, I believe, somewhere around 40 or 45 case numbers, separate reports that we've completed off of this event. It gave us the ability to, try to separate who was involved in a fatal collision versus who was involved in an injury collision versus who was involved in just a property damage collision. And when you think about it from the perspective of, if you were involved in this event, obviously you don't want to be listed as a driver or an occupant of a fatality collision if you weren't involved in that fatality collision. When you think about it from the stance of your insurance rates and those liability issues that come into play in our civil courtroom world, being involved in a property damage crash versus being involved in a fatality crash can mean the difference between, whether or not your insurance rates go up a little bit or they go up dramatically, type of deal. So when we broke all this down, like I said, we had 4 chart team members. We broke everything out into about 45 separate collision reports. And we utilized our images and our video and our ortho mosaic that was created from this documentation to help us in sorting out the mess, if you will, and trying to get the correct diagnosis as to which vehicles were involved in which crash, with the overall goal of being as accurate as we can be. Um, at the end of the day, I think we've done a fairly good job of that. I think we have presented our case to the people that we need to present it to say we have, identified these vehicles as being involved in this crash. Here's how we know they were involved in that crash. Here's how we've documented them, and here's why they are not included in, one of the other case numbers. At that conclusion of all of the documentation, here's basically what we're left with. This is kind of an overall of what we've got. Um, in comparison to what we would have had 10 years ago, this is a game changer. 10 years ago, the only opportunity we had for aerial images would have come from one of our KHP aircraft. Having the ability of being a guy on the ground at the scene, being able to take pictures, being able to, look at something and say, man, what's that look like from 50 feet in the sky? We didn't have that luxury. We didn't have that ability. Now with the drones, we do. We were able to, put all of this together, and this is kind of an overall presentation of what the final product would look like. When we utilize this orthomosaic image here of the entire scene, we were able to go in here and identify by color coding. We know this one contacted this one, that sort of thing. And so we were able to tie these vehicles together for our crash reporting purposes. And it really made a huge difference for us. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, and I will tell anybody that will listen to me, the drones, they saved the day for us on this one. The time, the accuracy, the manpower, and the resources, not to mention just the overall size and scale of what this collision scene was like. If we would have been doing it in our traditional old ways, like I said, we might still be there trying to get stuff done. So, uh, yeah, the drones are a big part of our world now. We utilize them routinely at pretty much every crash scene that we are called to. We use them in, like I said earlier, search and rescue and manhunts and those kind of things. We've also used them for multitude of different other law enforcement purposes. And I can tell you that now that people are aware that we have those, we get called pretty frequently for things. So I'm grateful that the agency has invested the time and money into those drones. I think that they've become a real game changer for the agency as a whole, and I would anticipate that they will continue to be. So that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'm open.
Any questions for Trooper Tarpley? We will share everyone's contact information on the last slide. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me, and I'd be more than happy to pass them on as well. If you don't have any questions, I know Trooper Tarpley, you have a lot going on within the state. This World Cup thing that's happening right now, I guess, taking up some time. So
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time to join us and share that information. I think the efficiency component is really surprising, and it's something that really surprised me the last time I saw your presentation. Thank you for sharing that info.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can't say enough for KDOT. KDOT in my world has been, they're like partners for me. Every time we have one of these major crashes that occurs on the highways, KDOT is our go-to resource. And so I can't express my appreciation to KDOT enough. You guys, your departments that show up and help with traffic control and road closures and it could not happen without you guys. So again, we greatly appreciate everything KDOT does for us.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate everything KHP does in partnership with us.
That's right.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the offer.
Thank you. All right, up next, Grant Jansen, WSU. Take it away, Grant. Brief intro and then jump in when you're ready.
All right, absolutely. Okay, let's see if we can get our screen shared over here and get the presentation rolling for you. All right, so my name is Grant Jansen. Can everyone hear me okay? Does that sound good?
Yes, sir.
Cool, awesome. Well, so like Ray just said, my name is Grant Jansen. I'm over here with WSU Tech down in Wichita, Kansas at the National Center for Aviation Training. And today we're just going to kind of give a brief overview of some of the things that we do to help support the UAS community in the public safety realm. And so the different trainings or the different opportunities that we try to offer to make it as easy as possible to get this up and running for you guys. So we've had a lot of different agencies help get off the ground, right, with us. We've been doing this for about 5 years, since about 2021 with the law enforcement. And over the last 2 years, we've actually trained over 120 different public safety personnel around the state of Kansas. I did throw in there just some of the partners that are kind of local to us that we've recently did some trainings with and things like that. We've also helped support two different departments in getting their DFR programs up and running. And so whether that's through, advice or through, training partners, we have helped get those drone first responder trainings up off the ground and kind of get that started, right? So whether that is Wichita PD here in Wichita, getting a bunch of them partnered up with Quick Trip and things like that to help get some better eyes on the scene quickly for some of those high crime areas. All right, so one of the greatest ways that we can help serve public safety has been through just doing some training. We kind of see the Part 107 as many of us, we love the Part 107, but also it has its flaws. And so our level one training, which is part of our three-part training, level one is kind of what we see as our barrier to entry. We want to make sure that people are getting the aviation knowledge that they need. A lot of times we get, officers or firefighters that are coming in with a lot of great experience in their field. But aviation is just such a different world that no one is always prepared for when they first step into it. So we try to get you guys Part 107 ready. So spun up through all the knowledge, all the airspace and the weather, the crew roles, those types of things. Now we also want to take that a step further, and we want to make sure that whenever we are, offering one of these level one trainings, there is no requirement in the Part 107 to actually know how to fly a drone. And so we make sure that we're not sending you out there with your brand new tool that is, used to be kind of cheap and now they're remarkably expensive of, your 20 grand at least a lot of times. We want to make sure that you know how to safely conduct an operation, how to fly an operation, whether that is a daytime or a nighttime operation. So that is the basic level one right there. Just getting a competent and safe operator out there on the streets. That way they can do their job with a new tool. For our level two, this is where we get what's called our tactical UAS operator. And this is one of our favorite trainings to perform just because it's such a fun scenario-based training that we don't have to sit you guys in the classroom and do a whole bunch of lecturing to you. Yes, there is a little bit of it, but we're able to actually get you guys out and do a lot of this in the real world. So whether this is for law enforcement or fire, it does not really matter. Learning to use thermal effectively is a big key part of the tactical UAS operator training, as well as indoor operations. Those are two really huge things that we throw at the newly minted level one pilot. Is we're like, hey, we're gonna dive into a thermal camera, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, and talk about all the great settings that you can do to help identify people or hotspots on different buildings and things like that. And then it all culminates at the end with a multi-drone scenario. And so that's kind of a cool one, being able to utilize some of that indoor outdoor type of stuff together into a large team-based scenario. And as last given by KHP here, we do also teach some of the level 3, which is going to be our technical UAS operator. Level 3 is kind of a unique one, right? Our level 3 is going to be our person. Not every department needs a ton of these, but you have your accident crew that is going to be able to go out and do some of that orthomosaic work, that photogrammetry, and get out there, take their drone, do some mapping. We teach Pix 4D and some of that, and I know that's what KHP said they use as well, which is great. And so by training up and teaching you guys the principles of mapping, it helps get a lot of reliability out of what data you're producing for your cases, and those types of things. The other one we've had people approach us with about mapping as well is mapping out larger crime scenes as well. So not just accident reconstruction. We've had hit and run accidents throughout Wichita, and they've been over a mile long hit and run accident, or there was a shooting that took place, and there was a couple of different locations that it happened at, as it was a driving incident. And so being able to create that orthomosaic along that route was incredibly helpful for that department. Another one that we also cover inside of level 3 is also some of that radiometric or that thermal mapping capability. So if you are in arson investigation or fire investigation, you are able to actually map out a location that has just been burned down, and do some of that reconstruction work to see where things may have originated from, and try to pinpoint the starts. We do also offer annual and customized training options. So whether you are looking for short annual training, so one of the great things that we do with our partners is we want to keep you guys current and fresh with the new technology. The great thing about drones is that it's always changing and it's always getting better. That also means it's a requirement for us to have to stay on top of it, right? We want to make sure that our people are best equipped with the current information possible, and allowing themselves to uh, be familiar with those aircraft, whether that is setting up regular scheduled events throughout the year with your internal crew, or send them to something like an annual training for their specific level to make sure that they are staying up to date with the current information or their current skill set. We also, for those annual trainings, they are all scenario based. We don't want you to sit down in a classroom and have to spend the entire time just listening to a PowerPoint like you are right now. We prefer getting out there and doing it hands on and being able to put those skills into practice. Along with the scenarios, I know I've gotten this question a few times in the past. We also try to keep these scenarios super fresh. We make sure that each year we bring out some new scenarios for our partners to be able to utilize, and that way it's never the same. And also we tailor it to whether you are fire or law specific. So making sure that we have those to be a little bit more suited to what we're actually after. If there is something that I have not mentioned that you are interested in for your specific department, we also offer what's called customized training. And this is you guys approach us with your specific need, and we see how best we can either partner with someone, or we put it together ourselves, and to make whatever need you need met. It has been wildly successful. Every time someone approaches us, it's usually started as a customized training and moved into something where we're like, hey, that was an excellent idea. Let's go ahead and offer that as a formal training. And then also with the flexibility comes a little bit of you get to dealer's choice, I guess you should say, right? Well, you can choose to come to us here in Wichita, which is at the National Center for Aviation Training. The picture on the right there is our brand new building that's still being built here. We should have that ready to rock and roll end of fall this year. So kind of nice. We're excited about that. Or we can also go to your department based on agency needs. So for example, we had a couple weeks ago a training down in Coffeyville. The whole crew mobilized and rolled out to Coffeyville for the entire week to produce the training needed for that department. So if there is that kind of need, if you're out in Western Kansas, something is interesting, you don't want to have to send your people down to Wichita, whatever it might be, we can always arrange to come to you. We also have some additional UAS support that we've done in the past that is excellent. And this is just kind of a, hey, if you ever get approached by, your captain, your chief, city planner, whatever it might be, that these are some things that are helpful out there just as resources to you guys. Um, we do event Overwatch support, so things like and Trooper Tarpley was talking about this in the past, how they've done with the state fair. We've done the same thing with here in Wichita with whether it's been Coke Arena and things like that, where if there's a large event going on, oftentimes WSU's police department or WPD or something may not have enough resources available to allocate not only officers to that extra event, but then also putting a crew up in the air. So by allowing us to come in and provide their eyes in the sky has been super helpful. Whether it's through crowd monitoring, traffic flow monitoring, state track every year. There's a big amount of traffic in and out of WSU's campus, and so those are super helpful ways that we can provide some assistance there. We also have drone as first responder support. Like I said before, we've helped two different apartments kind of get this set up and running. If that's something you are exploring doing, feel free to reach out. Let us know if that's something you need help with, whether that is, through DFR operations or workflows, what kind of equipment you might need. We can either help you directly or help get you in touch with the correct people you need. And then lastly, LiDAR and DTM modeling for flooding. This is a super interesting one that we've done a couple times. But by actually doing LiDAR mapping, we can do kind of inundation mapping as well of the area. If you have a new construction zone that has not been mapped out properly, or you have an area that has been experiencing heavy flooding and some erosion change, this is a very important tool to be able to go in, create those digital terrain models, and actually see what the drainage analysis will look like for that area. So I know for a lot of that emergency management type of people, those are super vital things to know what roads will flood first and what roads will still be open. So our training, again, is backed by experience. Like I said, my name's Grant Jansen, but we have so many other great people that we have on our staff here at the college. Again, here's just some of them listed out. We have a couple different law enforcement backgrounds as well on there. And so we try to tailor and make sure that not only are all of our trainings rooted in experience, but also that we're staying up to date with what's going on. Like we have in there, we have one that's a current drone lead as one of our instructors. And he's able to provide us with some insights that are otherwise very difficult to glean from different people. So that is just kind of an overview of who we have and who you might be expecting to be trained by. If there's any questions further, feel free to shout them out to me. I'm happy to answer them. If there's not, if you think of something later, feel free to take a hold of that contact information and reach out if you want. But anyways, I'll pass that back to Ray for the wrap up.
Any questions for Grant? All right, thank you, Grant. Appreciate the presentation. Up next, Mr. Spencer Schrader, K-State, Salina. Take it away, Spencer. Brief intro and jump into your presentation, sir.
All right, thank you, Ray. We'll go ahead and I'll share my slides now. Good morning, everyone. As Ray mentioned, my name is Spencer Schrader. I'm the director of the Applied Aviation Research Lab here at K-State Salina. So we do a lot of similar things as WSU Tech, and we've actually been around for almost 20 years now. So we actually got our start back in 2008, a direct result of the tornado that hit Greensburg, Kansas. Many of you were probably in the area at that time, and back in May of 2007. It was a horrific tornado, EF5 tornado, basically wiped the town of Greensburg off the map. And at that time, there weren't really any resources here in the state of Kansas as far as drones go. And so they identified a need, the state of Kansas identified a need for drones here in the state of Kansas. And at that time, K-State Salina had a what we call a Part 141 flight school. So we had crewed aviation program already. So it was a natural fit to have a drone program started up here at K-State Salina. And that's what happened in 2008. 3 years later, in 2011, we actually started offering a bachelor's degree in flying drones. And so we've been at it ever since then. We work a lot with the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, as well as state and local entities for UAS training and research. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself as well as our program here at K-State Salina. I know many of you already. I think I've probably worked with several that are on this call, so it's great to see you all. If I haven't, hopefully I'll get to work with you in the future. So a little bit about myself. I'm actually from here in Salina, Kansas. I'm very fortunate that I was able to stick around after graduating college. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree from K-State Salina. I love it so much that I chose to stick around after my undergrad years. I do also have hold a private pilot's license with an instrument rating. So that is, I would say, for those of you that have flown or have a passion for aviation, that's probably my most expensive hobby. They used to call it $100 hamburger, but in today's economy, it seems like it's a $300 hamburger anymore. So certainly the most expensive hobby I have, but it certainly lends itself well to this industry within UAS. And I am a big Chiefs fan, lifelong Chiefs fan. So if you're a Broncos fan, I probably don't have a whole lot to say to you, but we'll let it slide today. So I mentioned our program's been around since 2008. And during that time, we've offered FAA research, but also flight training for both undergrad students as well as industry professionals. So I have here a slide that just indicates or shows some of the different things that we have here at on the Salina campus of K-State. You can see there, of course, we have our UAS program, which has four main pillars: research, maintenance and technology, flight ops and training, and then academics, which is our undergrad students. But we also have there a fifth pillar, which is what I call non-credit academics. And that's really our industry professional training. Not everybody needs or wants to go to a four-year school or to obtain a four-year degree. And so that's where our short courses come in. Very similar to what Grant was mentioning earlier. We've been offering these courses for about 11 years now, and they range from public safety to other backgrounds or other industries such as agriculture and infrastructure inspections, as well as DOT trainings as well. So I would wholeheartedly agree with what Trooper Tarpley and with what Grant mentioned, with Part 107 being the base. If you don't already have your Part 107, there are many different options out there for obtaining it and getting the necessary knowledge out there. The FAA has excellent resources out there to help you identify what is on the test when you go to take it. But that is the foundation. That is the ticket, the barrier to entry right there is the Part 107 certification. We absolutely agree that there should be a practical side to it as well. And so that's where a lot of these other courses come in. Of course, not everybody wants to take something that is a standardized course. They may want to customize it to their own department, to their own organization. We are happy to do that. We always work with industry to create their own custom courses as well. And just as Grant mentioned, we offer these trainings here in Salina, but we also go anywhere in the country. We offer FEMA training as well. So if those of you that are familiar with natural disaster response, you have your FEMA courses. We are under contract right now with FEMA to actually offer FEMA training. These are no cost to you if you are interested in attending those FEMA courses, obtaining another FEMA certificate. I'd love to chat with you about that. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on with my presentation is some of the support outside of training that we have offered within the last 10 years or so within public safety. So that would be specifically with public safety, large scale events. And with large scale events, you've got, and I apologize, let me scoot this off the screen here. With large scale events, you've got a lot of people. And here in the last several years, of course, many different departments and agencies, yourselves may be included in that, have started to integrate drones into those events. And so using them for a variety of uses, such as just simply overwatch, identifying where the medical emergencies might be, if fights are breaking out, and being able to respond to those situations with a UAS. Not everybody has the equipment or the right equipment, and so they reach out to us for these larger events. So these are three that I picked out of the last several years that we have assisted with, whether that be local agencies or state agencies such as KHP. The Country Stampede, of course, went from Manhattan to Topeka, and now it's going back to or going down to Wichita area. But Country Stampede was certainly an event that we've helped with in the past, and we've got some great lessons learned from that I'll share here shortly. Kelsey Jam, Travis Kelsey, has a concert or event every couple of years, it seems like, out in Kansas City, Bonner Springs area. And significant amount of people. You can imagine Travis Kelce shows up, how many people start to approach him. And so running assistance there with the Bonner Springs Police Department. And then, of course, your Kansas State Fair, which sees nearly 250,000 people over almost a 2-week period. So these are all events that we do to support public safety. One of the things that I will also mention is, drones are just one piece of the puzzle as far as the equipment goes. You've got all of the other supporting equipment on top of that. How do we disseminate the video feed? How do we get the data out to our partners out there in the field, the boots on the ground, if you will? And so I'll talk about how we've done that in the past and some of the lessons learned. But in our support, we also offer not only aircraft support and personnel support, but just having a centralized location. We have a number of trailers that we use as mobile command stations. One of them is a 45-foot long trailer that we can have a number of people in. We can use it almost as the ICS. We can sit there and have all of the video feeds and dispatch, co-located in one location there from that trailer. So that's been very helpful in past events, and something certainly that we're going to take advantage of in the future. So I will probably be remiss if I said, if you have a drone program, I'm sure you feel the same way, but you get that drone or those drones and you think, I'm going to use it for one or two things, and it's going to be a specialized tool. And then you get the drone and you're using it for so many other, use cases. So this is what our initial UAS missions were going to be for, specifically the country stampede. So that was one of our first major events that we worked. And our two goals were for crowd monitoring and then medical emergencies. Those were going to be flights as needed. We would be stationed, and we'd be able to hear over the radio when the drone was needed to be launched and where we were to go. And that was our initial effort. That's what we were going into those events with that understanding of. However, as is always the case, if you have a drone program, you would certainly recognize this as being the case. After the event concluded, we saw that there were so many other things that we were utilizing the drones for. So Overwatch and emergency response, the crowd monitoring and medical emergency were just a drop in the bucket compared to everything else that we were able to do. It was very clear early on to those that we were supporting that drones were a very useful tool to these large events. And they, especially given the video feed that we could pump out and get them out into those operators' hands or to dispatch maybe on a separate monitor, they could ingest that situational awareness into their own location. So it would really help them with decision making. And so we found that not only were we flying, instead of just as an as needed basis, we were actually doing continuous operations. Our crew consisted of 3 different people. We had 2 pilots and one what we would call a mission commander to help with coordination between different individuals. But we found that we were actually cycling through aircraft with one up in the air. As it was coming back, we would launch the other one, so that we had essentially a bird in the air at all times throughout this first event, that country stampede event that I mentioned. So that was beneficial. We could swap between video feeds. We had an aircraft in the air at all times, but it even turned into, in some instances, we got 2 calls and both operators were sending those drones to different locations. Now, this is 5-6 years ago when manual operation was primarily the norm. You have a controller and you're going out and you're flying those missions by hand. Anymore, and in the years coming, we'll start to see a shift in manual operation towards more autonomy with these drones. So I'll be sure to mention that here in a few slides. But you can see crowd control providing location services. Even when vehicles are maybe being broken into, we can provide eyes over the parking lots and identify where suspects are fleeing to. That's a little more difficult when you're on the ground and you're trying to look over trucks and cars. You're not able to get that good of view. In addition to that, you can also obviously follow those people with the moving drone. So that's very beneficial. And then emergency response, as we get into summer months, of course, dehydration and lack of water being a big issue at these larger events and country stampede and state fair, dehydration becomes a pretty big issue. And so many medical emergencies, I would say probably is our number one call out. We get calls, someone's passed out, someone's laying need assistance. We can locate those individuals around the park if on the ground have not got yet. The last one, damage assessment after a storm. You may wonder, helpful, a large event. Well, at the Country Stampede years ago, we actually, I'm going to skip a slide here and I'll go back. Years ago, there was a large storm that came through in Topeka. And you can see here in this middle image, some of the tents for those camping. You can actually see in this top left image some of the storms out there in the distance, some of the haze, overcast clouds, a lot of rain and a lot of wind. And so you've got people staying in tents. Of course, that can create some unique challenges for public safety in the middle of the night. And so using drones as a disaster assessment tool has been proven to be very valuable, not just at these large events, but so you think about some of the rains and the storms here in the last several weeks. We had over 110-mile-an-hour winds here in Salina, specifically just a few weeks ago. Being able to use drones to identify where power lines are damaged most, where the poles are, get an accurate count of how many poles are needed, especially if the roadways are flooded. You can't necessarily drive a vehicle to those areas. Using a drone to access those areas can be very helpful and very beneficial. If you've got vehicles driving down those roads that are flooded, maybe there's occupants inside the vehicle, maybe their phone has died and you can't reach them. Is there anybody inside that vehicle? A great tool would be a drone. So I'll go back before I proceed with some of those other photos. But as I mentioned, we had a 3-person crew. These are the aircraft that we were operating primarily in the state fair, prior to that in the Country Stampede, and then iterations I've added to this list here. So DJI, it seems everybody has flown or does still fly perhaps DJI aircraft, although slowly getting phased out with some of the federal mandates and state laws now. But that's where your American aircraft come in, or non-country of concern aircraft come in. So we also operate NDAA compliant drones or blue list drones. We have Skydio, of course. SenseFly EB Vision is one of those that we have recently procured as well. And those are aircraft that we are utilizing, in different manners. So of course you have multi-rotor drones that may only be flying for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. But can we integrate a larger platform, maybe a fixed wing platform that can orbit around the event to provide eyes on through, a longer duration, maybe even for the full event? And then I mentioned trailers earlier. So we have a couple of different mobile command trailers, and those mobile command trailers are something that I would say are, beneficial if you're going to be out there for longer than a few hours. So when I am operating a drone for maybe an hour at a time, I may not need a full mobile command trailer, but at these larger events, maybe, Trooper Tarpley with the pile up there on I-70, if they're going to be there for 12 to 13 hours, having a mobile command station where I can charge batteries, it's climate controlled, I can have pilot station there, depending on the regulatory environment I'm operating in, that can be very beneficial for not only my crew, but also any other decision makers that are going to be on site. So I think of integrating into the incident command structure, having someone there, such as an air coordinator maybe, or just dispatch being located there, being able to control the scene could be very beneficial. So this is one of the earliest trailers shown on screen right there. This is one of the earliest trailers that we have that we purchased back in about 2010. And it's a 20-foot trailer, mobile command trailer that has a 35-foot antenna mast up on top, and of course generator power so that we can be stationed on site for 12 to 16 hours, depending on the response that we're needed for. The 45-foot trailer that's not shown here, it's actually a converted toy hauler. So if you're familiar with camping and going camping, you've got your fifth wheels that anymore the last 10 to 15 years have gotten pretty popular, which would be the toy hauler trailers, which you've got a garage in the back. So we've actually converted that toy hauler and are still currently doing that to where the back half, the garage, can be storing all of your aircraft. You can also set up, different tables. But then the master bedroom has actually been converted into our pilot stations. So you've got your suite of screens there. The pilots will be co-located inside of that room that can be closed off from all external factors, keep a sterile cockpit, if you will. But that's been a need that we've had because of this 20-foot trailer. You start packing people into it, for hours at a time. It can be pretty confined spaces. So that 45-foot trailer is going to allow us to respond to large-scale events, but also natural disasters here in the state of Kansas and elsewhere in the country for days at a time instead of hours at a time. So sleeping quarters, fuel generator, of course, gas tanks on board to be able to operate for days at a time. Another thing that these trailers allow us to do, I've talked a little bit about the video feeds and disseminating that out to others outside the mobile command trailer. We utilize something called Team Awareness Kit for that. So TAC. Many are probably familiar with that. DroneSense is another commercial off-the-shelf source that you can utilize, but that is fairly expensive, and not everyone has the funds to be able to subscribe to a service like that every year. And so that's where something that doesn't cost, relatively speaking, doesn't cost much, whereas DroneSense higher cost TAC is hundreds of dollars for a one-time fee. So depending on if you are using cloud-based servers or local storage or servers, you can operate TAC fairly inexpensive. So the way that we run this is our UAS team located here in the trailer. We have our TAC server located with us both locally, but then we also have a cloud version as well. Now, those that are outside of the trailer, such as patrol officers or someone that's going to be out there in the event or at a natural disaster, we have a QR code that they can scan on their phone, and it'll take them directly to the live video feed. They can actually see all of the feed that our drones are seeing on our operator's side. So for situational awareness, that's excellent. I'll have a couple of pictures here in a moment that show you some of the things that we were able to do at the state fair in the last couple of years. And we hope to continue to build on that here in September. So you've already seen these images, but this is the Country Stampede. This was an event where we had quite a few flight hours. I think they had over 50 flight hours that they were flying drones simultaneously at. They had an officer involved, assault on an officer essentially, and we had that on video with the drone. So that without that video, they would not have been able to use that later on. So that was very valuable for those. They were able to get the full context of the situation because we had eyes on the scene from the initial call out to the arrest of that individual. And of course, just thousands and thousands of people. So being able to identify folks that are maybe outside of where they should be or doing something they shouldn't be doing, you don't have to rely on static cameras for that. You can obviously use drones that are able to be moved. This is that team awareness kit, just a screenshot of that of TAC. You can see a lot of different things are visible on this. This is what we call the UAS plugin tool for TAC. And you can see on the left side of the screen, you've got your map, but then on the right side you have your live motion video. So on the left side with your map, one of the nice things about TAC is that you can overlay custom labels. So if you have structures or tents or vendors, you can actually label those vendors within your map here on the left side. So I was able to label, our team was able to label not only the buildings, but then as folks scan that QR code, they can type in their own name and they can now be co-located or we can see their location on that moving map. So you can see here some of the troopers around the vicinity. They labeled themselves either with their names or maybe they had their specific codes. And so we can see those yellow pins throughout our map. And now, as we're scanning the area, if we see something with our drones that maybe dispatch hasn't called out quite yet, we can get on the radio and we can say, dispatch, this looks like the nearest trooper to this incident or to this scene. At all times, we're not the ones necessarily talking on the radio. We generally have a POC with us from the organization that we're working with that handles those radio comms. I always tell folks we are not public safety experts. We are drone experts, and so that's what we're really there for, is to support those within public safety with these capabilities. So I mentioned the overlays, but the other thing that you can do is you can actually augment those. So what I mean by that is not only are you sticking it onto your map, but you're also augmenting it, augmented reality essentially onto your camera feed. So not only do I see it on the moving map, those troopers on the ground, but I can also see their pins on the camera feed. So TAC has been a very valuable tool for us. We're integrating it into nearly every public safety event that we are supporting with. We also offer TAC training to individuals wanting to set it up at their own organization. We are grateful for KDOT's efforts in that and leading that here in the state. I think it's a great effort to try to bring what we call a common operating picture, and TAC is just one of those tools here into the state, and it's been received well through many different local departments here in the state of Kansas. So those that have spoken before me and myself, we've talked about some of the current generation of operations. So of course, crash reconstruction, hazardous materials, disaster assessment, tactical overwatch. But some of the things that we're starting to see today and going out into the future, that's a question that I always get. What's happening in the next few years? And so I just figured I would put this into a few bullet points. Grant mentioned drone as a first responder. It's becoming more and more prevalent, more and more popular. Wichita areas, Olathe, Lenexa, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri all have DFR programs now, drone as a first responder. Beyond visual line of sight operations, many are starting to do that here in the state of Kansas under what we call Part 91 operations, under certificates of authorizations, COAs. We are starting to see some utilize fixed wing aircraft and hybrid aircraft for their operations, which I'll touch on here in a couple slides. And then larger than small drones. So under Part 107, small drones are categorized as less than 55 pounds. So those are great for deployable assets, something that you can pull out of your vehicle quickly. But what can we utilize for longer endurance operations that can cover larger areas? And that's something here in the next 10 years, I certainly think we'll see more of. So if you're not familiar with DFR, I thought I would put a quick slide in here. Drone as a first responder. It is, as it sounds, it is instead of a patrol officer showing up to a scene first, it's a drone that flies over and gets eyes on the scene for dispatch to make educated decisions, calling out other patrol officers too. There was a city in California, just south of San Diego, that years ago started up what I believe is one of the more successful DFR programs, especially early on. And that city actually found that it was a force multiplier. They were saving money. They were actually able to clear calls with the drone before they ever sent an officer out there in a squad car. And so that's kind of been the model ever since then. And today we see drone as a first responder. I would say you have multiple stages of DFR. You have those who are using them maybe once or twice a day. They get a call and they think we could utilize a drone for this. Let's fly the drone out there. And then you have others that are operating drones every hour. They're flying their drones based on calls that they're receiving, and they're going out and getting eyes on the scene. So that live video feed from the drone dock, you can strategically place these around the city. Some cities have many drone docks. Some only have one or two docks that can service, within about a mile or two. If you have obviously multiple docks, you can now service the entire city. And so some are using it as a pilot where they have one or two docks, and then as they start to see the success come through, the data that they have, they can now start to purchase more docks to strategically place throughout the town or throughout the city. I will also say that the regulatory side of things has dramatically improved. So kudos to the FAA for that. I know that has taken a lot of work. DFR drones are just as susceptible to crashes and accidents as other drones out there flying. They are not certified aircraft. They are susceptible to accidents. And so one of the challenges for the FAA, if you're in public safety, I'm sure the FAA will touch on this later, but one of the challenges is how can you ensure public safety? You're in public safety, but when you go out and you fly a drone to those scenes to hopefully keep an officer maybe even out of harm's way, well, flying the drone over people could introduce new risk to the public, general public. And so how can we ensure the safety? And so as data has come through, the FAA has become a little bit more lenient, and they have opened up, I wouldn't say the floodgates, but they have certainly opened up the doors quite a bit more for public safety entities to operate these drones as a first responder. One of the cool things that I've read about, seen, and talked to folks about here in the last 12 months is how these drone as a first responder docks have the capability to be integrated into the next generation 911. So you think about vehicles today. If an airbag were to be deployed, it may alert 911 automatically. That could also notify a dock where it automatically launches. It goes out and it gets eyes on for dispatch just as they're getting the same call. So really exciting uses of drones. I think we'll see these certainly more and more as the years progress. I mentioned fixed wing and hybrid systems. Of course, you have a couple of different ones there. You have the EB Vision, which is one that we have up on top, and then the Wing Trud, which is a popular aircraft as well for mostly mapping, disaster mapping responses. You think about a wildfire, which we get here in Kansas. A wildfire comes through the grasslands, and they have to go out and map out how many acres it's burned, or what destruction it has caused. A multi-rotor drone would take you days to be able to go out and fly that area, depending on the size, of course. A fixed wing can get it done in a number of hours. And so that's one of the things that I think as operations progress within public safety, we'll see more of, is those fixed wing and hybrid operations. So of course, the next 10 years, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't guarantee what's going to happen. A lot of it does fall back to the FAA and what they're willing to open up regulatory wise. We have still no final ruling on Part 108, but we do have the rough draft there for Part 108 and larger than small aircraft, beyond visual line of sight aircraft. I don't foresee many public safety operations occurring under Part 108, but that still may open the doors depending on what the final ruling looks like. But I would say, if I had to give some insight into where I think the next 10 years within public safety drone operations is going, I don't think that you're going to be surprised if an organization has drones. It's no longer going to be specialized equipment. It's going to be the standard practice that they utilize drones. I do think DFR is going to be a common thing, and I also think that instead of getting called out, I think that as these systems progress and their flight times increase and the safety increases as well with that, you may even see these drones have a specific area that they take off and they patrol routinely on an autonomous operation. Even today, one operator is controlling multiple drones with those docking stations. So I think about here in the next 10 years, that pilot may not even be needed so much. Common operating pictures, I think, will certainly take off, especially as DFR takes off. You're going to need to know where your assets are within the state. You think about or within your jurisdiction. We think about Axon, being able to integrate Axon into or your drones into your Axon systems. If that's what you utilize, that will be certainly a thing that many are looking towards. And then larger aircraft. I think about sheriff's offices specifically covering large amount of square mileage, utilizing large systems that can do the same thing. They can fly those out with thermal cameras at night if they need to. That's going to be something that I've already seen some sheriff's departments starting to investigate and see if that's worthwhile for them. And then, yeah, I will say it's hard to know what's going to happen with the regulatory side from a federal and state level. I know many probably miss their Chinese platforms for the cost reason, but who knows what the next 10 years will hold. I do think here in America and non-country of concern type of manufacturers, we're going to see a lot of excellent options. We already have started to see that here in the last 10 to 12 months, significantly more cheaper options than we saw years past. So a quick recap, of how K-State can help. Of course, we are here for just about anything. Training, of course, pilot training, but it may not just be that. So helping with scenario-based exercises, flight operations support if you have an event. If a tornado comes through and you need support, we're happy to assist. If you don't know who else is out there operating drones within the state, we're happy to assist as well. KDOT does a fantastic job of kind of keeping that in-house as well. So they're an excellent resource, I will say. But that is all that I have today. So I will turn it back over to Ray, but I've also happy to take some time for questions.
Thank you, Spencer. Any questions for Spencer? Appreciate the presentation, Spencer. You mentioned something that is, I think, going to be extremely exciting moving forward. You and Grant talked about drones as first responders. You just recently talked about the telematic capability. And this is something that I just learned about recently. And we're working toward, a future where, and this is current technology that's available for 911 dispatch centers right now, if they're upgraded. So there's the next generation of 911 that can take telematic information from vehicles at a crash that is sent out almost instantaneously. So a vehicle crashes, airbag is deployed, the vehicle knows how many seat belts are, fastened, if there's rollover, there's multiple sensors on vehicles. That telematic information is nearly instantaneously sent out potentially to a next generation 911 application where resources are dispatched automatically. So it doesn't have to go through a call center. It doesn't have to, someone doesn't have to pick up the phone and call 911. That information is transmitted near instantaneously, and those resources are dispatched near instantaneously if the proper equipment and software and protocols are set up in place. Part of that chain can also include dispatching a drone, and it can include location position information. Why that is valuable is that drone can go out potentially to that location and help with situational awareness. It could help the dispatcher to understand, okay, we thought it was going to be this bad, but I mean, there's cows loose now on the highway. So we need to shut down and approach this accident from a different location. Maybe we need to dispatch additional resources, or maybe it's worse or better or whatever. We can help dictate the response, and saving any time in being able to get a first responders out on the scene translates to potential for life saved. So there's the potential to have that implementation for an upgrade to 911 centers and incorporate a drone that can go out for situational awareness, in addition to a law enforcement organization or public safety organization being able to use that same resource for their drone as a first responder, really increasing the capability of those assets. So we're seeing a lot of amazing opportunities. I think I'm really excited about the where we go from here. And by the way, that telematic, that is stuff that's available right now to incorporate into your 911 centers. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out to us and we'll start that conversation. All right, we have a question from Marcy. Marcy, I can read the question, and if you want to jump in, feel free to go ahead and share that. Or I'll go ahead and read it if you don't want to do that. All right. For those of you that have stated that you would assist with planned events, is there a certain number of participants that you would assist? Example, 3,000 and above attendance. Second question, when you assist with planned events, is there a charge for the service? So Grant and Spencer, if you guys want to address that question, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to give my answer. I am the one unmuted first. So, Marcy, thank you for the question. There is no minimum number of participants. If you have an event that you could use assistance with, we are happy to assist. That's one of the things as part of a land grant institution. Our outreach within the state of Kansas is important to us, and so that I will say we have offered support for many different events from small to large. And if we can find ways that, we would be able to mutually benefit from that event, would certainly be happy to chat about that. And then for your second question, there are times where, we do operate, specifically our department, our lab as a business. We try to. So there are situations where we try to recoup our costs. I will also add in there that not everybody has the funding to support those situations where they need support, but they can't fund it. We may be able to utilize grant funding for those different events. But happy to chat about your specific events if you have any in mind.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Spencer.
and
Grant?
To piggyback off Spencer, ours fits very similarly to Spencer's as far as we obviously do not we don't try to pass off a profit to you guys by any means. There is no limit to how many we've done it for events of just a couple hundred people when there was some Charlie Kirk type protests or like the rallies and stuff in town for those, all the way up to we've had Coke Arena entirely packed out and you have thousands of people. So we've got many different ranges there as well. With that being said, though, too, we always try to find if there's a way that we can pay for it with a grant first. That's ideal. And then number two is we never try to pass along any sort of a profit to it. It's just a break even cover costs if we have to. So, anyways, that's kind of my 2 cents to add in. We want to do the best we can to make sure that we're not making your guys' jobs any harder for budgetary. We already know it's a struggle a lot of times for those issues. So.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Spencer. One thing I would like to add before I turn it over to our partners at the FAA is we want to hear about your needs. So keep KDOT Aviation also in the loop. Please reach out to any of these professionals that are on the call, but also keep us in the loop. From time to time, we become aware of certain grant opportunities, and we'll share that out to our distribution lists. So one, watch our social media, watch our Facebook page, and two, just share that information, maintain that line of communication. And if we run across a state or federal grant opportunity, we'll share that with you. There may be grants that can help with your specific event or standing up a drone as a first responder or anything that you may want to do that aligns with these topics. So please keep us in that conversation. Any other questions before we go to the FAA? All right. Thank you, gents. Up next, but certainly not least, Karen M. Miller and Rick Stevens with the FAA. You guys feel free to jump in with an introduction and go into your presentation.
Karen, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. Karen Miller. I am an aviation safety technician here at the Wichita Flight Standards District Office, the Federal Aviation Administration. I've been here with the FAA about 4 years, and I was asked to take over this new area of drones. And so I have jumped in that with both feet and kind of become the subject matter expert here at the FSDO. We cover the entire state of Kansas, except for the 3 counties up by Kansas City. That's covered by the Kansas City FSDO, but other than that, we are responsible for the whole state of Kansas. So we are available to everyone to, if you have any questions about the regulations or how to get started in operating drones or how to police drone activity. That's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. But we are here as a resource for you. What I do specifically is I do investigations, mostly into drones, drone activity, complaints, things such as that. But I also assist our inspectors with a lot of other investigation and oversight activities. So, Rick, go ahead.
My name's Rick Stevens. I am the FAST team or the safety team program manager for the Wichita FSDO. My job is aviation safety outreach. In this capacity, it's thrown me into all areas, including now drones. So it's a new world for me. Karen and I learn a lot together and have helped each other a whole lot in this endeavor. I've been with the FAA now for 23 years. Love what I do and nowhere anytime ready to go. So with that, Karen, let's go ahead. You want to run these slides or you want me to?
I can go ahead and share.
Go ahead.
Let me see if I can do this. Begin. Okay, share. All right, is that sharing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, see if we can get the whole screen here
From beginning over there.
from beginning, and it's putting it on my other screen here. Let's do this. How's that?
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. That is our contact information, Rick and I. And if you want to take a moment to look at that, that's how to get hold of us. Today's presentation, where does the FAA get their authority? The U.S. airspace is public space. A lot of people think that they own the airspace above their homes. They do not. It is public space, and that is the federal regulation that spells that out. UAS are aircraft, and they are subject to regulation, and those are the federal regulations that spell that out. An aircraft is any device used or intended to be used for flight, and that does include drones. Drones flown outdoors must comply with FAA regulations. Back to the U.S. public airspace, if they are flown indoors or in an enclosed space, that is not covered under that regulation, and therefore it is not subject to federal aviation regulations if a drone is flown indoors. So who operates drones? There's three main areas of drone operations. There's private, that would be your recreational operators, also known as hobbyists. They have limitations. They have to fly below 400 feet. They need to be in more remote areas. Generally, they're going to be flying in specific locations known as FRIAs, or that's one of the areas, and the other one is fixed sites, two different kinds of areas. But normally they're going to be flying in certain specific areas, or they could fly, out in remote areas. And they need to be at least 5 miles from an airport. They are not allowed to fly for compensation or hire. The recreational carve-out regulation is known as Part 44809, and if they do not meet all of the requirements of Part 44809, then they will fall back into Part 107, which is the civil. That's the next one. That's where you get your remote pilot certificate. That is one of the requirements there. There's also an exemption for the compensation or hire, but the civil aircraft, some of them may have a special airworthiness certificate. That's going to be for the drones that are larger. Part 107 is for small UAS. The larger aircraft that will require an airworthiness certificate, 55 pounds and over, those are probably going to be flown on under Part 91. This is also going to cover the experimental aircraft. And then we get into the public. That's going to be you guys. It's got to be intrinsically government in nature, federal, state, local agencies, all of the above. Both the operator and the operation must qualify as a public entity and for public interest. Again, examples: Department of Defense, local, state, federal government agencies, and then, of course, some universities. So the recreational aircraft, generally, recreational operators are going to be flying under the rules of a community-based organization, a CBO. The main one that they're going to fly under, most people are using the Academy of Model Aeronautics, the AMA. So if you're policing drone activity and somebody says, "Oh, well, I'm just flying for fun, for recreation," and you ask them, "Well, which CBO rules are you flying under?" and they give you a blank stare, then they're probably not qualifying for the recreational carve-out rules, and that would put them back into Part 107. But that's one of the things they need to do. They need to avoid manned aircraft. They also need to maintain visual line of sight, and they have to fly for hobby and recreation only, just for fun. They also must register and mark their drone before flying outdoors. If the drone is between 0.55 pounds, actually it's above 0.55 pounds, and 55 pounds, then they need to register that drone. And that's where that QR code is where you can find information on that. Part 107 basics. UAS operators must obtain a pilot certificate, a remote pilot certificate, if they're going to be flying for compensation or hire, or they don't meet all of the requirements of the recreational rules. They have to fly within visual line of sight. They can do daylight operations, night operations with required lighting. They have to have required lighting for night operations. Generally, they're going to be flying at 400 feet or below in an uncontrolled airspace, which is called Class G. Other airspace use will require authorization. It's called LANCE, and we'll talk about that later. The UAS must weigh less than 55 pounds, again, or it needs to have a special airworthiness certificate. So it must weigh less than 55 pounds, and it needs to be registered. So that's the basics of 107. So the Part 107 rule is the first rules that came about for UAS, unmanned aircraft systems, that are less than 55 pounds. Those rules took effect in August of 2026. As you can see, it's been almost 10 years that we've had these regulations. Recreational and hobby operators also may fly under Part 107 rules. They can, if they don't meet all of the requirements of the recreational carve-out rule, they are allowed to fly under Part 107 as well. But they need to meet all of the 107 requirements, such as being a Part 107 pilot, and they need to have their drone registered. Part 107 or public law, let's see, the 33, that's the carve out for the recreation. So, okay, some of the things that happen where drones can fly and where they cannot fly. We do have wildfires in Kansas, and it is illegal for UAS operators to fly in and around wildfire firefighting operations unless they are authorized to do so by the incident commander. So if you are out there during a wildfire and policing some of the activity, and you see a drone that is not involved directly in the event, then such as a newscaster or something like that, that would be illegal. Recreational operators are required to give notice for flights within 5 miles of an airport to both the operator and a tower if the airport has a tower. However, recreational operators are not permitted in Class B airspace. Class B airspace is going to be your big airports. Kansas City is Class B airspace. We're talking about things like places like Chicago or Atlanta, the big airports. They have to have specific air traffic control permission in order and coordination in order to fly in those locations. Also in the Class C airspace, which is more of your more common feeder airports that do have airline service, those are generally your Class Cs. They also need to have coordination. So you guys, law enforcement, public use. This is the FAA landing page over here for you guys that the FAA has. It is faa.gov/UAS/publicsafety.gov. QR code is also over there for you to reach that site. This is going to give you a lot of information on starting a drone program. Drone is first responders, and also giving you a lot of resources that are available that you can use for policing drone activity in your areas. And other resources are the ACs, the advisory circulars there that are listed. Again, there's Lance and COAs, and then federal orders. Another resource that is huge for you guys besides us, specifically, there's a UAS Help Center. That is their email address, and they have even more resources. When I have questions, I reach out to them. Those are the guys that help me figure things out as well. So they are a huge resource for you as well. Did you want to take over on that one, Rick? Okay, law enforcement reporting, unsafe UAS activity, flying near or at the airport would be an unsafe activity. Report the sighting to air traffic control. Things that you need to do is note the location, altitude, characteristics of the aircraft. If you can find the operator, that would be great. Probably want to make sure that they land the drone safely before you approach them, but let them know that they need to land the drone immediately. Anywhere else, obtain the UAS operator's information. There is a resource for you called LEAP, Law Enforcement, what are they called? Assistance program. That's what it is. Law Enforcement Assistance Program. That is kind of a liaison group that the FAA has between law enforcement and us here at the FSDO. Try to be as detailed as possible. Location, altitude, direction, pictures and video are great. That information can be sent to me here at the FSDO, or you can send that to your LEAP agent and they can put that together, and then they usually send it to me for investigation. So here's some information to document. It's kind of the same thing as other incidents, but name, contact information, type of operation, device, and so on, and evidence, photos, videos, like I said. One of the resources that's available at that website that I showed you, that was the landing page for public safety. If you dig into that website, you can find a response card. We have these response cards available, but you can also print them. I would say it's a pretty good idea to have everyone in your department have a copy of this response card. It kind of gives you some information on what you need to do. They have a little acronym here that they've put together. Direct your attention, report the incident, observe, notice features, and then execute your appropriate police action. And then, as always, follow your agency's policies. Local ordinances that may apply include reckless endangerment, criminal mischief, voyeurism, and inciting violence. And then here is the contact information for the Regional Operations Center. The Central Rock is in the middle. That's the phone number for the Central Rock. Or you could contact your LEAP agent as well. This is on the back side of that reporting card. Did you want to talk about LEAP, Rick?
Yeah, there are no criminal investigations in the FAA. We do not do criminal. We only do civil. If it's criminal, it's referred to the FBI normally because we are a federal agency. The law enforcement assistant program are former law enforcement mostly that are liaison between the FAA, us, and the law enforcement community. They're really good people and they will help you any way they can. Right now, they're like, we were talking to the trooper earlier, the World Cup thing has got them just running like chickens with their heads cut off.
Very
The
busy.
focal point for each one, there's 20 plus special agents. They can give you resources. They can help you get your program set up and running. Karen and I will also help you with that. They do outreach and training. I help them with that. They help me with it. They help you with investigations, and they help you with incident reporting. Next slide. Like I said, they do outreach and education for law enforcement and other public safety agencies. Like the afternoon program will do, we'll be helping you with that. They can help you with incident response, starting your program, initial discussions, generate outreach products such as the cards. They can help you find those and get them running. They assist law enforcement criminal investigations, supports any special events you have going. Uh, they generate flight standards referrals for UAS events, and we'll get into reporting that in just a second. And they assist flight standards, us, with investigations and regulatory activities when needed. Next.
Okay, I'll take this one. Some of the recent hot topics in the drone world is the referrals that we've been getting from LEAP. They what they will do is they will take information from you folks in the field and put that together and send that over here to the Flight Standards District office. And it usually comes to me as the drone point of contact for investigation to see if there's any civil penalties that need to be incurred. We'll see if there's any violations of federal regulations. One of the complaints that we often get is about harassment, and that is not a federal regulation. That would be a local concern. Another thing that's been an item lately is counter UAS. What that means is that can mean a lot of things. It can mean deterring drones from the area using technology, which is mostly going to be your military right now. That is not something that local law enforcement is federally allowed to do at this point, but that's being looked at. So as it was discussed earlier, that's one of the things that's probably coming in the future, especially over places like sensitive areas, prisons. We have a lot of oil refineries around Kansas and that sort of thing. So it is a concern. If an FBO caller calls us and they're describing a criminal activity or using threatening language or harassment, which is not our area to address, then we're going to refer them back to local law enforcement. If that criminal activity is of serious concern, we may also contact you. But generally, we're going to tell the caller to call you guys directly. Referrals from LEAP to Flight Standards, those get generated from you guys, law enforcement. If you contact LEAP instead of us, that's fine. Capture all the information that you have available at the time. LEAP intentionally doesn't initiate any regulatory investigation. They will send it to us here at the FSDO, and that, like I said, that generally comes to me for investigation. And they will support you in your investigation if you have criminal activity. They are here to support you in that. There's been a sharp increase in law enforcement and public safety agencies utilizing detection equipment. It's coming. It's possible. There's just a lot of regulatory hoops to get through. And then there's this new tool that the FAA has just recently made available to law enforcement. It's called Discover. This is the landing page for that with the QR code. What this is it is a portal that law enforcement can access information such as, is this individual a remote pilot? Do they have a certificate? Is the drone registered? That's information that you can look up. You can also look up if the drone, if they have gotten specific authorizations. Say they're flying at 200 feet and they are in a 100-foot zone near an airport. Well, that would be a violation unless they had further coordination or a waiver to do so. Law enforcement can look that up yourself. There is a process to get approved to access that information, and this is the process. Again, there's the QR code to get started on that. It's kind of nice because normally you can either call LEAP or you can call us here directly to see if to check on that information for you, and we're happy to do that. But we're not available, you know, if something were to happen after hours. This would be a way that you could have someone at your in your offices at your agencies to be able to look that information up yourselves. It's a really good tool. I've used it and it's very helpful. So if somebody calls the FSDO, when am I going to refer this to LEAP so that we can get the cops involved? What I'm going to do is I'm going to follow my guidance. That's what I do all day, every day, is I follow the guidance on how to do investigations and what I need to do in certain situations. Order 8900.1. Volume 1, General Inspector Guidance, gives me the criteria in which I would need to follow if it needs to get law enforcement involved. If they're describing a criminal activity, for example. I would direct the complaint to the appropriate law enforcement agency. The FAA or LEAP will not make a criminal complaint to law enforcement for them. I will direct the caller to do that. Mainly it's the see something, say something rule. If the credible caller is describing serious crimes, I'm still going to direct them to law enforcement, but I'm probably going to contact LEAP if it's really serious. And then make the determination if we need to get the appropriate law enforcement agency involved. Sometimes we have situations where we need to take it up to the FBI at the federal level. So it just kind of depends. We're going to follow our guidance. We have our own policy and procedures. So we will follow that accordingly. Rick, did you want to go through the questionnaire?
We'll run through this rather quickly. Most law enforcement officers know how to fill out reports. As a former law enforcement officer, I hate to think how many I've filled out. So it's just general regular information. This is available online through this QR code, and it is a fillable PDF form, so that makes it easier and legible. So just we want the agency, your telephone number, name and number. Next, the operator's name, who did you catch? Their date of birth, current address, ID's not current. You know, you get everything you can from them. Next, U.S. information. The information that's on the UAS itself, it should have a registration on it. If it doesn't, get everything you can off of it. Take pictures, attach them to it. If it's got a remote ID number, we need that. Did the officer witness it? Were there other witnesses get their information? What was there a purpose of the flight? Was it just general flight playing around, or were they doing something nefarious? Did they have a waiver? Next, reporting agency name. You get a little out of me. Reporting agency's name. This is all just general good information. Was it in restricted airspace? Were there other individuals assisting or observing? How high were they flying? Use buildings, things like that. Were they operating more than one UAS? Did it carry an external load or drop anything? Was the UAS operated at night? Did it have flashing lights on it? Did you seize by your department policies the UAS or the controller or anything, you know, the SD card off of it? Were they under the influence of drug or alcohol? They never do anything stupid with alcohol, do they?
That would be
Within,
a violation.
yes. Did the use of drugs or alcohol contribute or impact the UAS incident or operation? So just general good information that you can put in here. I'd like to fill out any other report, just get the information to it, forward it to either us or LEAP.
Okay.
The guide to public safety, you want it?
Sure. This is also one of the resources available at that landing page that I mentioned earlier. This is kind of a quick rundown on starting your own operation, how the FAA can help. There's a QR code directly to this particular resource. But there's a lot of good information here on getting started for your own Drone as First Responders program, and there's the second page of that. So if you want to take a moment to grab that QR code, that can get you started. So when you are out there in the field and you are encountering a drone operator policing drone activity, if you know what information that you can ask for and that they have to show you, it is very helpful. When it comes to rec flyers and Part 107 pilots, a recreational flyer does not need to provide you with a photo ID. And the reason is that a recreational flyer has no lower age limit. They can be a child. They can be a 6-year-old kid. As long as they have passed what's called the trust test, then they can fly recreationally. A Part 107 pilot, however, is required to show you, as law enforcement, their photo ID, because the lower age limit for a Part 107 pilot is 16 years old, and they're probably going to have photo ID. Drone registration, like I said, all drones between over 0.55 pounds and 55 pounds need to be registered. They need to have a registration. So that is a big one. A lot of times you're going to encounter what we call the 3 C's, which is the clueless, the complacent, or the criminal. The clueless will not have any idea that they need to register their drone. So that would be a violation both for a recreational flyer and a Part 107 pilot, and you have the authority to ask for that registration. Proof of trust test. Like I mentioned, the trust test is the test that recreational flyers need to take. It is available at many different locations. When I took mine, I took it through the Boy Scouts of America source, but if you just Google UAS trust, you can go ahead and find several resources there. Pick the FAA version and they will guide you to the available places that you can take the trust test. But they are required to show that to you if they are a recreational flyer. Part 107 pilot may have never taken that, and that is just fine. They don't need to show that to you. And then for the remote pilot certificate, like I said, the recreational flyer might be a kid and they are not even eligible for a Part 107 certificate. So if they're a recreational flyer, no, they don't need to show you their remote pilot certificate. They may not have one. However, a Part 107 pilot will be required to show that to you. There is no recency of knowledge requirement for a recreational flyer. They can take the trust test. It's one and done, and they don't have to take any kind of recency. However, a Part 107 pilot does need to take a recency of knowledge test every 24 calendar months. However, they are not required to show that to law enforcement. You may ask for it, but if they choose not to show it to you, that is not obstructing your investigation. They are, however, required to show it to me as a representative of the administrator here at the agency. So think of it, if you have any kind of aviation background, it'd be like looking at your logbooks. Taking your recency of knowledge exam for a manned aircraft would be a flight review. Law enforcement generally doesn't look at pilot logbooks, but we do here at the FAA. So recency of knowledge, no, they're not required to show that to you. And then airspace authorization. Yes, both the rec pilot and the Part 107 pilot are required to show you their airspace authorizations. If they're flying in a Lance area that it would require authorization, they would need to show that to you. So what about remote control airplanes? Are they UAS? Do the rules apply to remote controls? The short answer is yes. We'll look at the definition of an unmanned aircraft. It means an aircraft that is operated without the possibility of direct human intervention from within or on the aircraft. And aircraft is defined to mean any contrivance invented, used, or designed to navigate or fly in the air. And the RC meets both of those definitions. So RC aircraft are drones. There's no new unique definition for an RC aircraft. So if they said, well, I'm just flying my RC, well, it's a drone. And that's the authority for the procedures and associated rules and regulations are provided in Title 49 of the U.S. Code, Subtitle 7, Aviation Programs. So, any questions on that? Okay. So, what happens when we at the FAA receive a safety complaint against public operators, you guys, which has happened? We're going to do what we do with every other investigation or a complaint that we receive. We're going to investigate it the same way we would investigate everything else. I'm going to follow my guidance. Public aircraft get relief from some of the Part 91 airworthiness and pilot certification rules, and some of the Part 137 rules, which is ag operators, but not much else. The rules apply to public aircraft too. So we will investigate the complaint and apply the same compliance action or enforcement action, as it were, on those investigations that we would for any other complaint that we receive. Go ahead, Rick.
We have recently stepped up enforcement with drones. I know you've been hearing with the World Cup and the FIFA that they're seizing drones. They have the counter drone technology and they're going after them hard. They've suspended, revoked certificates for flights near major sporting events, emergency response events, wildfires, and in restricted airspace. That those flights can pose significant safety risk to other aircraft, the first responders, and to the public. Drone operators are responsible for understanding and following all applicable regulations. Just because you don't like the law, just because you don't know it's the law, you still got to follow it. In 2026, the FAA updated its enforcement policy to require us to go legal action instead of compliance action, which is we can do counseling on, but legal action when the drone operations endanger the public, violate airspace restrictions, or conducted in the furtherance of another crime. Policy strengthens the deterrence and reinforces the agency's commitment to protecting the national airspace.
Yep. So if it's any of those three, then I will have no choice. My guidance tells me that I have to go straight to enforcement.
We can't do anything else.
No.
Those who fly unsafely can be fined up to $75,000 per violation. A lot of times when we have these, there could be 6 and 7 violations in one instance. We can revoke their pilot certificate. If they don't have a certificate, we still fine them and or their company. There's a lot of different ones here. No sense in taking up a bunch of time, but they are really cracking down. And like I said, with the new thing we've got with the FIFA, they are really going after these people, and they've got the technology to do it and track them down. Next. Took certificate action. Had one get entangled with a paraglider. forcing a paraglider pilot to make an emergency landing. It's certificate action. Certificate suspension for committing multiple safety violations during a drone light show. I think that's the one that injured the kid where the drone fell out and hit the kid.
It is.
Certificate suspension for operating a drone over people during an NFL game. That many people in a drone and it gets away from them, there's multiple opportunities for an injury. Restricted airspace near Mar-a-Lago. That one, they're really going to get on you, and they've got the technology to go after you.
Yep,
So,
they do.
with that, do we have any questions?
Any questions for Karen or Rick?
No?
If you guys do have any questions after this, again, you have their contact info, or feel free to reach out to us and we'll direct them direct you to them rather. I'd like to take a minute to thank again Trooper Tarpley, Grant, Spencer, Karen, and Rick for participating. We are going to take a brief break, or a 1 hour break rather. Come back at noon Central for the second portion of the presentation, where we will go over the unique hazards associated with responding to an aircraft accident or incident for those public safety organizations that don't receive aviation training. So come back at noon. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.